Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to discuss Bitcoin's recent breakout, seeing Bitcoin shoot up as high as 122,000 while we're recording this video. We're also going to tie in Bitcoin's price action to the way that the liquidation heat map is reacting. We can see that liquidity has been swept to the upside like discussed in last week's video. We're also going to touch on the Bitcoin dominance as we are continuing to perform structures similar to the way things played out in 2021. And finally, we're going to tie that into the altcoin market here, as we now have seen the altcoin market push out from this accumulation range as Ethereum has been breaking out over the last 5 days, actually seeing it push up and set new highs. Then we're going to bring all of this price action together and discuss how we see things playing out for the rest of the week, as there are a lot of news events on the horizon. And I think the main news event that's going to cause a lot of volatility moving forward is on this Friday in the upcoming meeting. So lots to jump into in today's video, guys. Let's jump into it. So firstly, let's start with the liquidation heat map here, and what you can see is that Bitcoin has pushed to the upside, sweeping all the short liquidity sitting at around 120,000. And if we jump in and have a look at lower time frames here, you can see now we are starting to see liquidity build at these lower regions here around 115,000. And then as the week progresses, I wouldn't be surprised to start to see more long liquidity build to the downside here. Now, as far as things go in regards to the Bitcoin dominance, we actually seen the support region get swept over the weekend, and now we are seeing the Bitcoin dominance shoot back to the upside. So just like the way things played out in 2021, which is this black drawing I have here, I am expecting the Bitcoin dominance to spike up one final time before then coming back to this support level and then breaking down. Now, if we compare that to what we have here, which is the way things played out in 2021, you can see we already have seen this initial break in the Bitcoin dominance. We are in this stalling out period right now, and what I think's just happened is the Bitcoin dominance has shot to the downside here, found support, and what I am expecting is one more final bounce before we can eventually roll over, break down, and start phase 2 of the alt season. As far as things go for the altcoin market, I am expecting altcoins to correct and stall out here before finally breaking out and continuing to the upside. A lot of the price increase that we've had here on Total 2 has been Ethereum's performance in the last 5 days, and I do think that Ethereum is at a stage now where it will likely consolidate and stall out before continuing to the upside. And I think that Total 2, which is the altcoin market here excluding Bitcoin, will likely perform similar. Now, the reason I think Ethereum is at those final topping stages before consolidating is that it has played out very similar to the way Bitcoin did all through 2023 and 2024, where you can see we have these lows get set in here, price moves to the upside, consolidates, similar to the way Bitcoin formed its lows here, price moves to the upside. Then the same way we've seen Bitcoin grind out through here, push higher and then flash back down. We've actually seen Ethereum perform similar here, find support in the same region before moving up, consolidating the same way you can see Bitcoin's done on the right side in this orange example. And then from this orange circle, we've seen Bitcoin and Ethereum both push to the upside, pull back in the same region, sweep liquidity from the same consolidation ranges. And now I think Ethereum has pushed up, gone through this black line, which was its previous high set. And just like Bitcoin did back in March of 2024, I think Ethereum will go into some kind of short-term correction here, where it essentially forms a bull flag before it can then break to the upside like Bitcoin did back in 2024. And I think that's what I'm expecting to play out here for Ethereum. And if we tie that into the way I think things are going to play out here for Bitcoin moving forward throughout the week, we've seen an explosive start to the week, price surging as high as 122,000. However, moving forward, I think we will see a bit of a boring week, potentially a pullback to 120,000 before then shooting higher. And I do think that when Bitcoin actually shoots higher, that will be on the back of what's happening here on Friday. And I think we should expect to see a lot of volatility in the markets. However, I do think the end result of this meeting should be positive, and that we should see price continue to move up. And that if we just zoom out here on the way things are playing out for Bitcoin, have a look at a higher time frame. Again, this marked out in the orange here is the M2 money supply, which does point to Bitcoin moving up to as high as $135,000 in this next move to the upside. So as far as short-term price action, I am expecting a slight back test here on Bitcoin before moving higher. And I do think Ethereum will play out quite similar, where we are expecting it to consolidate before then again moving higher. Now, if we move into coins like XRP, I think that XRP is just stuck in this channel, and until we see things break to the upside, I'm expecting it to just keep grinding down, and that the levels that we're looking for XRP to find support before eventually breaking out will be around that $3.11 to $3.05 area. And that I think throughout the week we could expect XRP to continue selling off in this channel before then breaking to the upside, similar to the way I think things will play out on Bitcoin here, that on lower time frames we are looking for Bitcoin to actually backtest before breaking to the upside here. However, what we are looking for is that confluence, and I do think that'll all play out when we see the Bitcoin dominance shoot a little bit higher, start to reject, come back down to these support levels, and then I think when it breaks down from these support levels is when we'll see coins like XRP shoot out and set new highs. And I do believe that's when we'll also see the altcoin market shoot out, break out from this consolidation range I think it's about to go into, and then go and set new highs. Now, if we scan a lot of the altcoins here, you can see that something like ADA is sitting below this resistance level, and it is forming the final stages of this consolidation structure that it's been in since February. And that a lot of the altcoins here are performing similar, even Dogecoin sitting in this consolidation structure since February, however, is starting to perform like it did back on the lows here in October leading into November before it eventually broke to the upside, and that I wouldn't be surprised if we do see something like this play out on Dogecoin leading into September, and that even for Doge I am expecting a short pullback before we can see price push to the upside, similar to what I'm expecting here for XRP and Bitcoin before we can eventually shoot higher. One thing also to note is that Chainlink has in the last 5 days broken out from this accumulation structure, so this should be a little bit of an insight to what I think a lot of the coins are going to do moving forward, and then what we're seeing here right now play out on Chainlink is an example of what's to come for a lot of these coins that are still sitting down in these lows and finding resistance against this area. Now, as far as bullish narratives go, last Friday we did see Trump signed an executive order allowing 401k retirement portfolios to actually invest in crypto, which is opening the market up to trillions and trillions of dollars of potential investment. On top of that, we actually seen the XRP court case officially come to an end after 4 years of SEC scrutiny. We've now seen this case officially close, and what we are starting to see in regards to a lot of these news events here is a lot of positivity and the potential setup for price to explode going into what I believe will be the final phase of this market. And I think all of these news events are lining up with what we're seeing here on the charts as far as the Bitcoin dominance eventually breaking down, shooting to the downside, and giving us that alt season like we've seen back here in 2021. And I think we are in those final stages now before we can actually start to see the Bitcoin dominance break to the downside. We can start to see Bitcoin catch up to the M2 money supply and push as high as 136,000 in this next move, potentially even higher in a final 5-wave blow off top here. And I think during all of this is when we will see things like XRP and a lot of the altcoins covered in last week's video actually go on and complete full extensions of this range that we're in. And just to touch on that briefly, we are looking for bigger market cap coins here like XRP to push between 200 to 300% higher, give us those 8, 9, 10, potentially even $12 price targets that we're looking for. And as far as a lot of these smaller market cap coins like Dogecoin, we're looking for a price to push between 300 to 400% higher and give us those full extensions. Thanks for watching today's video, guys. I do believe we are at those final stages before we start to see the exciting phase of this market, and that we are potentially less than 1 to 2 weeks away from all of that kicking off. Again, looking for that middle August area before we should start to see some volatility and some excitement in this market. And I think what could kick it off is how things play out on Friday. But so far, very exciting start to the week. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like down below. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next one.